Hello, third graders. Welcome to the Midwest region. This week we are going to be learning about the 12 states in the Midwest: Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, and North Dakota. So these are the 12 states. We're going to start off by learning about the land, the water, and the climate. Go ahead and have your reading packet open to the Midwest region. Have a pencil and a highlighter ready so you can take notes as needed when we go through our lesson today. At the end today, you are going to answer some true or false questions. So let's look at them, get our brain thinking, and then we'll dive in. First thing we need to learn about is the Midwest region next to the Pacific Ocean? Second, most of the land in the Midwest region is flat, grassy plains. Third, the Great Lakes are connected to the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico by rivers and canals. And the last, the Mississippi River is the shortest river in the United States. So you're going to be answering if those are true or false after our lesson today. All right, let's get started. Here is a picture of our 12 states in the Midwest region. You also already have filled this out. The land of the Midwest is very different from the land in the regions to its east, which we've already learned about. Almost all of the Midwest is flat, gently rolling land with very few trees called the Central Plains. You might want to underline or highlight that sentence. Prairie grasses cover much of the land. The prairie grasses help make the soil extremely fertile, which means great for growing crops. The Central Plains are low, but rise slowly west of the Mississippi River. And so that means that most of the Central Plains are Missouri, Iowa, and into a little bit of Minnesota, as well as parts of Kansas and a little bit of Nebraska. Down below here, you can see a picture of some of those prairie grasses, as well as if I go back, here is another picture of prairie grasses growing. The Great Plains, not the Central, the Great Plains lie to the west of the Central Plains. So the west side of Kansas, Nebraska, and then going up to South Dakota and North Dakota. The soil in the Great Plains is not as fertile, meaning as good to grow crops, and there is less rainfall. The land is higher, drier, and rockier. The Great Plains are mostly dry grassland with very few trees. The Black Hills in South Dakota are the hilliest part of the Great Plains. The Black Hills have very high peaks made of granite. And you can see this picture here of here was the dry prairie grass, and here is the Great Plains coming out of it, that higher, rockier land. There are areas of the Great Plains that are very, very dry. These areas are called the Badlands because the land is useless for farming and many other human purposes. In the Badlands, there are steep slopes made of clay and soft rock. When it rains, the clay and rock erode, creating canyons and many strange shapes in the soft rock. All right, let's talk about the water. Water in the Midwest is very important. Most major cities in the Midwest formed near these waterways. Before railroads, travel on waterways was faster and less expensive than traveling on land. The Mississippi and the Missouri River combine to make an important waterway. So we have the Ohio River, the Missouri River, and the Mississippi, which all come together. The Mississippi River runs 2,300 miles through the Central Plains, all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. You might want to underline. Many tributaries join the Mississippi River, including the Missouri River and the Arkansas River from the west and the Ohio River from the east. So tributaries just means smaller rivers that flow into the larger river. The Missouri River is the longest river in North America. You might want to underline that. Flowing just a few hundred miles farther than the Mississippi. Many people think Mississippi is the longest, but that's not true. It's actually the Missouri River that's the longest. The rivers are a busy water highway for boats and barges. The river banks are lined with levees, raised areas that stop the rivers from overflowing. So almost like a hill, so that if it rains a lot, the rivers do not overflow onto the land. Another important part is the Great Lakes. 4 of the 5 Great Lakes touch the Midwest region. And when we looked at our states, we wrote them down. Here is a picture of the Great Lakes. The lakes are so large, they hold 1/5 of all fresh water in the world. It's over 6 quadrillion gallons. Rivers and canals connect the Great Lakes to the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico. You might want to note that. And here is a picture, like I said, of the Great Lakes. So we have the 5 Great Lakes that are connected or touching part of the Midwest. Okay, so starting over here is Lake Ontario, which is not connected. Then we have Lake Erie, which is connecting to Ohio. We have Lake Huron, which is on one side of Michigan, and Lake Michigan on the other side, also with Chicago down here, Illinois, and Wisconsin. And then up here is Lake Superior. Now turn in your reading packet to page 6 so you can continue learning about the water with us. Although the Midwest has flat land, the Great Lakes are not all at the same level. Locks are needed to lift and lower ships from one lake to the next. Locks are part of waterways that are closed off by gates. Barges wait on the lock while the water is pumped in or out. Once the level is high or low enough, big doors swing open to send barge traffic on its way. Michigan's Soo locks lift ships from Lake Huron, which is 200 feet up, lift ships from Lake Huron up 21 feet to Lake Superior. So here is where would the Soo locks be. So this is all part of Lake Huron, and Lake Superior is 21 feet higher. So the boats have to be lifted to that level of water. The Soo locks are the busiest locks in the world, with over 12,000 ships passing through each year. And here's a picture of the Soo locks. So the boat comes in, and you can see right now the boat is at the correct water level. If the boat was not, these gates would close, and they would either lower the water or raise the water, and then the boat would be able to exit the other side. So they come in one side and go out the other. All right, so that is some information on our land and water. Let's head to the climate. When we're done reading about the climate, we're going to answer these questions. True or false? Part of the Midwest is called Tornado Alley because it gets so many tornadoes. And the second statement, the Midwest usually has very gentle weather. So let's be thinking about that as we read about the climate. The Midwest can have severe weather. You might want to underline that. It has no ocean nearby. There's another hint, to warm the land in winter and cool it in the summer. Therefore, or so, the winters are very cold and the summers are very hot. They have extreme opposites. The winters are long and harsh. In the winter, storms called blizzards bring heavy snow and freezing rains. They often, and this isn't in here, but they often also get ice storms. In the winter months, the Soo Locks, which are the ones on the Great Lakes, are closed because of ice on the Great Lakes. The Great Lakes will freeze over and the boats will not be able to move. Spring brings hailstorms that drop hailstones or lumps of ice instead of rain. In the spring and summer, there are tornadoes with strong whirling winds, and there is a picture of a tornado. Part of the Midwest region is called Tornado Alley because it has a very high number of very destructive tornadoes. You might want to underline or highlight that sentence. People who live in Tornado Alley are aware that tornadoes pose a potential danger for them. Buildings in this area have strong roofs and foundations that are tethered to the structure, meaning tied down. Many people also have storm cellars, which are underground shelters that protect people from a tornado. So they can go down in the storm cellar underground to be protected from the tornado. Neighborhood tornado sirens warn people when tornadoes are about to happen based off of the weather. So a siren goes off and it warns people to take cover. Plants and animals also adapt to the climate. Prairie grass has deep roots to find water when it's super hot. Some birds migrate to warmer places in the winter, like coming here to Florida. And then prairie dogs, as you can see on the left here, live underground so they can stay cool. Bison are another animal that you might see, and they have thick fur that help them survive the cold winters. Millions of bison once lived on the Great Plains. Hunters killed most of them for their skins. Then people started protecting bison. Now there are about 150,000 bison in the United States, and bison are like buffalo. All right, so now we've learned all about the land, the water, and the climate of the Midwest region. The next time I see you, we'll be talking about our products and natural resources.